like when we create healing for ourselves and we take that step, and I always tell people, you cannot change other people. They're on their journey, but you can heal yourself. All the healing that we do for ourselves in this life is going to affect everybody that you know and all the people that are coming after you. And the only way that we can create a better world, a more healthy world, a world where we're more compassionate human beings, guess where it starts? Right here with us.
Welcome, Youest family. I am thrilled to introduce you today to Dr. Lotte Valentin. I love that name. Dr. Lotte, I am so excited to talk to you. You are somebody who you've had 2 near-death experiences, 2 NDEs. You are an evidential psychic medium. You have medical background, physician. You do a lot with healing. I mean, there's a lot we're going to be covering, a lot of ground we're going to be covering. I always tell my beautiful community, put on your spiritual seatbelt because we're about to go for a ride. Thank you for being here today.
Well, thank you so much for having me. I love that expression, put on your spiritual seatbelt. I feel like that's what this hour is going to be about.
I feel like that's what this lifetime is about.
Yes.
Put it on and
Yes.
be able to hold on tight and stay open. Yes, but surely for this time together. Yeah. So I think what might be interesting is to start a little bit about, your background and how did you get into the world of mediumship and healing, and did the NDEs, when did those happen? I'm going to let you kind of pull the thread you want where to start. But I think to go through 2, most people haven't even gone through 1. That's intense. So I'm going to hand it over to you. Please share wherever you like.
Yeah, that is intense, I have to admit. So thinking of how I was raised, I was very scientific. I did not have any beliefs in religion, the spirit world. I thought you die, it's black, you're gone, that's it. There was no belief system in place for me to actually, use that when I had my near-death experiences. So it's really interesting because I had my first near-death experience after I gave birth to my 3rd child. So I have 2 boys that were born in 1986 and 1988, and then I gave birth to my daughter in 1992. And when I gave birth to my daughter, we lived in California, and she was born in the eastern part of Anaheim. So people that have been to Disneyland, they know that Disneyland is in Anaheim. And as I'm contracting on the table, in labor, 3 minutes apart, we have a 7.4 earthquake that was later downgraded to a 7.3. But as these earthquakes happened, that was one of those moments in my life when I said, this is it. I'm going to die. Like, we're all going to die. Right. And that's something that a lot of us are familiar with, because we might have come close to being in a car accident or being afraid we're crossing the train tracks. We see the train coming. There's lots of times when we have that feeling, thinking, oh my gosh, this is it. Right. So here I am on this table. We have this huge earthquake hit. The hospital we were in were built on rollers. So the hospital just swayed back and forth. We lose all the power. It goes pitch black. And I'm thinking, this is it. I never thought I was going to die this way. The windows are going to cave in, and there was a new hospital. So the windows were from floor to ceiling. And I said that the ceiling tiles are going to just bury us in rubble. The nurses, the midwives, my husband, everybody was just hanging over me on the table, holding on for their life, because they would literally have fallen over. And in the hospital, you know how they have these little metal trays with all the metal equipment, and it was bouncing up and down on this tray. And as I'm lying there thinking this is it, the earthquake stops. It was so bad, my labor actually stopped for half an hour, because when you're giving birth and the tiger is about to eat you, you're going to stop being in labor and get yourself to safety first, right? So that's how scared we all were, because we all thought that this is it. So the generators have kicked on. We now have the light of like a night light in the birthing room. And 30 minutes later, my labor kicks back up. I give birth to my daughter. I give birth, and we have a 7.2 earthquake hit. So again, it's shaking, and we're all thinking, Well, it's not as bad as the first one, so this is an aftershock because you never know, is the next one going to be worse, right? So we go through that. I finally get to hold the baby. As soon as they give me the baby, I'm in excruciating pain. I'm bending backwards. I'm yelling to my husband, take the baby, because I could not hold on to her. And that's the first time I'm hemorrhaging. So this huge mountain of blood clots come out. They massage my uterus, and then they put me on an IV drip to contract the uterus and keep squeezing out what was left. And they kept me an extra day in the hospital, and then they sent me on my way. Well, as the days went on, it felt like, imagine swallowing a bowling ball and it's sitting at the base of your stomach. There was this tremendous pressure in my abdomen, and it would have pain radiating down my thighs. And I could not figure out, like, why was this birth so different from my other two births? And well, 10 days went by, and my friends were holding a baby shower for me in the park. And I get to the park, I go to use the restroom, and this enormous blood clot comes out. I'm talking the size of, a husband's or a man's large fist, or the size of a newborn baby's head. I mean, it was enormous. So I tell my friend, I get back in the car. I said, I have to go, I have to go. And I drive back home, which was, 2 blocks away. My parents were visiting from Sweden, where I had grown up, and taking care of my boys that were 6 and 3.5, and, helping with the birth of the baby. And I lie down. They call my husband. He comes home from work. We go to the ER. They do a manual inspection, and they say, well, it's just a trickle of blood coming out now, and it could just have been a second lining. Now, this is 1992. That was it. There was no labs done. There was no ultrasound. There was nothing. They kept me for observation for 2 hours. They said, probably a second lining, go on your way. And I mean, thinking of the era, I was 34 years old. I was tanned. We lived in Southern California. I looked like the picture of health. But that's also how women often get judged still today. When you go to the doctor, they say, you look good. Well, I don't feel good, right? So they sent me on my way. And then the next day, the same thing happens in the evening. I hemorrhage again. We call the hospital. I yelled to my husband, I am not going to the hospital. They're not going to do anything. So it was decided I should see the doctor the next morning in Huntington Beach. Went to see the doctor. Again, visual inspection. Just a trickle of blood. It looks normal. Could have been another lining coming out. I'm like, okay, 2 linings, 2 extra linings. So they sent me on my way. That afternoon, hemorrhage again. So now we say, okay, we have to go back. This is, third time I'm hemorrhaging in 3 days. I'm losing blood. So back to the ER we went. Doctor comes in, manual inspection. Doesn't look like much bleeding is coming out now. We'll keep you for observation. No lab work, nothing is done. They closed the door, and I'm lying on the table. So after some time went by, I started bleeding again. And I mean, to me, I was just happy I was bleeding. I was in the ER. Didn't really think about how much blood I actually had lost in all this time. So as I'm lying there, and this is divine intervention, because the timing of this nurse, for some reason, decided to check on me at this particular time, whatever called her to do that. Because if she had come 2 minutes later, I might not be here today. So she opens the door, her jaw just drops, this, horrified look on her face, like, oh my gosh, like, you see how much you've been bleeding. So I can hear she quickly cleans up the paper, puts new paper down on the bed where I'm lying, and then I hear the call on the loudspeaker, OBGYN, stat to the ER, OBGYN, stat to the ER. And I swear within 30 seconds, this middle-aged physician comes running in, completely out of breath. He must have run across the hospital, runs into my unit, the room I'm in, with a younger physician in tow, probably the resident. And he quickly says, how much have you been bleeding? So I tell him, this has, been going on for 3 days now. It was the 4th time I'm hemorrhaging. And he looks in the wastebasket, and he can see all the blood on the papers. So he knows how bad it is. So he starts by doing a visual inspection. So as him and the other physician are doing a visual inspection, another huge blood clot comes out. And I try to sit up and tell him, I don't feel too good, because now this is the fifth time I'm hemorrhaging in 3 days. These enormous blood clots. So I've lost a lot of blood. And as I'm trying to sit up and tell him, he knows what's going on. So he just pushes me back down on the table, and they start tilting the table. My head goes towards the floor. My feet goes up, to the ceiling. And I can't keep my eyes open anymore. So my eyes are closed. I can hear the room filling with staff. I have a nurse on my right putting a blood pressure cuff on my arm. I have a nurse on my left trying to place an IV. And as I'm lying on this table, I just feel like I jumped out of an airplane without a parachute. I feel like I'm just falling through thin air. And the nurse on my right yells out, 50/15, hurry. That's my blood pressure. At 60/20, you can't support a heartbeat. So I am plummeting quickly. And it was shortly after that I knew that I was dying. And that was a very different experience from the experience I had giving birth when I thought I was going to die. This was a knowing. I knew I was in trouble. I knew I was dying. And again, I said I never thought this was gonna happen. And I was born and raised in Sweden. And so everybody was a Lutheran back then because I was born in the late 1950s. And so when I grew up, the church and the state were the same. They had not yet been separated. So we went to the church to get a passport. So very different. And so we were all confirmed back in the day, but I didn't have any belief whatsoever in anything. So here I am on this table thinking, knowing that I'm dying. So what do? The atheist that I was. I prayed to God to save my life. And I said, well, if there's a God out there or something out there, please let me live. I have 3 children under the age of 6. They need a mother. And shortly after that, I was pulled out of my body. So here I am all of a sudden, it happens so quickly because it's a split second. There's no way of describing it because it is just you're in the body and then you are not, right? And so all of a sudden I'm outside my body. And in this state, what is the first thing I tell myself? How can I be outside my body and still be me? How is this even possible? Because I did not have any belief system in place to support my experience. But I also know that there is no time in this state. You have access to past, present, and future. There is no time. Time doesn't exist there. Time only exists when I'm in my body, in this earthly realm, to have my earthly experience in my little bodysuit. Here I experience time. My body is aging. I know how old I am and all those things. It's very linear. But on the other side, outside the body, there is no time. And everything is just calm and peace, right? And I have knowledge. I know I belong to the body on the table. Just like you go to the grocery store, you park your car, you know that that's your car. You find your way back to the car. It's very similar to stepping out of your car, stepping out of your house. I stepped out of my body. There is no other way to explain it because it's that simple. So I don't get to be in this state very long. So they saved me, which is the joke, right? I had to have a second experience because they saved me too quickly. So I get pulled back into my body. And that next morning in the hospital, as I'm lying in the hospital bed, trying to figure out how could I be outside my body yesterday? Because I didn't have, like I said, no belief in that could even be possible. And as I'm lying in my hospital bed, I hear my sister-in-law. My sister-in-law had passed away 10 days earlier from cancer. And I'm aware that she's in the left corner of my ceiling. And she says, everything's going to be okay. And I'm thinking, I'm going crazy. Yesterday, I thought I was outside my body. I'm having this whole experience. There's no time on the other side and unconditional love. And now I think I hear my sister-in-law talking to me in the corner of my ceiling. So I was eventually released, and a week or so went by, 2 weeks or 3 weeks. My parents kept changing their tickets back home because they had to stay and help care for me and the kids now. And then eventually my mother-in-law came to stay with me. And she said, what happened in the ER? So I told her the story. And I said, I don't understand how this could be. And she said, what happened is that you had something called a near-death experience. And she went out and she got me the book, Life After Life by Raymond Moody. And that was my introduction to what had happened. So then as a result of all this, I have what's called like a bone marrow suppression, and I'm really sick. And I sit in a rocking chair for a good 9 months. Like I can't leave the house. I don't have enough blood in my body. And they were originally right away when I came to in the ER, the doctor said, I have to give you blood. And I said, do you have to give me blood? And he said, do you have a religious belief that prevents you from taking blood? And I said, no, I don't. But it was 1992. And a lot of people back then, we didn't know what AIDS was. And a lot of people that got a blood transfusion ended up having AIDS 5 or 6 years later. So I said, I just don't want to get AIDS. I have 3 kids under the age of 6. And so he said, we're going to see what we can do. You're otherwise young and healthy. We're going to monitor how quickly you make blood. You're not going to feel too good for a couple of months, but we're going to give you support and nutrition and everything. So that's what we ended up doing. And so it took me a couple of months to start making blood. But instead of making all the new blood, I ended up with something called bone marrow suppression. So my bone marrow shut down and I wasn't making enough red blood cells, white blood cells, or platelets. So I was covered in bruises and we all got pneumonia that Christmas and we went to the walk-in clinic. Everybody got antibiotics. Everybody gets well except for me. I go back to the walk-in clinic after 8 months, after 8 days of being on antibiotics. And they take a blood test and they come back in the room and they say, do you have AIDS or leukemia? Because you have no immune system whatsoever. And I said, well, I don't have AIDS because I didn't take the blood. So I told them what happened. And again, they said, you have to go to the ER. You're way too sick to go home. And I said, I'm not going to the ER. Anyway, eventually, I'm working my way through this. And it took me a good 6 years to start functioning normally. And because I had so little blood in my body, I've always had this feeling of that I was leaving, or maybe my soul didn't merge back properly, because it always felt like if you lay a puzzle and one piece is sticking up, that's kind of how my soul felt. Like it was always like popping out of me. And I would always say, no, we're not leaving. Come back inside. And I would get bruises. If I put my knee on the floor to tie my children's shoes, I would get a bruise covering my knee. So this bone marrow suppression took a while. And as I'm really sick and this feeling of always leaving my body, that was like a daily experience for me because I was always struggling to sort of stay in the body. So one night, of course, this happens all the time. I would wake up, my head is pounding just from keeping my head on a pillow because I didn't have enough blood in my body. So I wake up and again, my head is pounding and I'm saying, okay, we're not leaving, we're staying. But the soul is like, no, we're leaving. And so again, just like in the ER, my soul just pops out. But this experience is so different. And I always joke that they saved me too quickly the first time because I didn't get to have the second experience. And it's really the second experience that initiated my life path and what I'm here to do. And the work that I do today is based on this specifically second experience. So I had this feeling of just tumbling through darkness, more like, Star Wars. You're just tumbling through space. And I get to this place I call a mid station because there was an awareness of that you could go higher or lower. Just like if you get into a skyscraper and it has 100 floors, you press the button on the 50th floor, you get off. There's floors above you and floors below you. You don't know what's on those floors, but they're there. And that was the sensation that there were things above me and below me, but I couldn't see what they were. But there were like different levels. And I call this the bouncing station because they sent me back. So I ended up at this level of where if you get there by accident, they're like, no, you can't be here yet. And they're going to send you back. So I get to this place and the first thing that happens is that I hear the most beautiful music. You cannot make this music on the earth plane because I tried. I sat by our synthesizer and there was, this Roland synthesizer with probably 200 sounds. There was not one sound that sounded as beautiful as the music I heard. And I've heard other people talk about this too that have heard music. So I'm wondering, where is this music coming from? So I'm looking to the right and I see this little log cabin. I mean, it reminds me of like a Swedish sauna. And I think it's so funny what we see, in these, when we have these experiences. There were no relatives there. There was nobody I knew. No, it was just this little log cabin. So I open the door, I look inside and I'm like, the music must come from that cabin. I look inside, it's empty. So I look to my left and I open the door, look inside, but it's empty. So I'm like, where is this coming from? But then I become aware of this bright white light. And all I can say, it's imagine you're standing on a field and this dense fog is rolling in, but it's all being lit up by this light, this, um, like a bright light, like a light on a stadium or like a car dealership or something like that. And it's going through the fog because this light is just coming in, is rolling in and completely surrounding me. And as this light comes in, I turn around into this light. But in the light, there is this outline of angels, like the silhouette of angels. And the music is coming from the angels. But I'm also well aware of the fact I don't believe in angels. But I'm seeing an outline of angels. And I think my whole experience, I had to experience things I did not believe. Because if I had had the belief, I would never have believed in the experience itself. I would just have explained it away. This is my belief system. My brain is making this up. But it wasn't like that for me. I had to experience the things I didn't believe. So as I'm standing in this light, the music is coming from the angels, but the light, I also have this awareness that the light is what we come from. We are part of that light. We return to that light. That light is God or source or whatever you want to call it. But we come from that. This is a greater being of some shape or form. And as I am in this light, I become aware of two spirit guides. One is on my right and one is kind of diagonally to the left in front of me. And they're communicating with each other. And the one on my right says, "What is she doing here? She can't be here. She has to go back," which is why I call it the bouncing station. They were like, "Go, no, you can't be on this floor." And the guide on the front of me says, "Well, I asked the guide and I said, well, wait a second, I can't go back. How can I be outside my body and still be me? Like, how does this work?" Right? I've spent 2 years now trying to figure this out. And the spirit guide on my left says, "Well, if I told you, you wouldn't remember." So there is some kind of control mechanism. And I've heard this from other people too, that they get to control what we get to remember in some way. And, why is it that some people have their heart stops for 5 minutes and they have no memories? I'm going to say it's not part of their life journey. It was just something that happened. They don't need that information for their incarnation. But apparently I needed this information, and it also, initiated my life path. And so the spirit guide says, "Well, if I told you, you wouldn't remember, but you will remember this." And then it's like I'm all of a sudden standing on the moon, looking down on Earth. But around the Earth, there is this, what I call the silvery, glittery fishnet. Because I grew up in Sweden and spent my summers on an island without electricity or running water. And I would row this little boat for my grandma, who would lay fishnets in the ocean to catch fish for the family. And when she lifted out these fishnets in the early morning sun, those little water droplets on the fishnets would sparkle in the morning sunlight. And so this is 1994, so we don't have Google yet. Now you can Google grid around the Earth, right? And you get all these beautiful images that look very similar to what I saw. So to me, my best explanation was this fishnet around the Earth with sparkles on it, like water droplets sparkling. And the spirit guide says, everything on Earth is connected to each other, but everything on Earth is connected up to this grid. And with that information, I get sent back to the Earth. But that is literally part of what I do today, and what my work has become. After going to med school and working as a physician, and lots of other things happening along the way. But I'll hand it back to you for a moment in case you have some questions.
Wow. Well, so I can't even imagine, first of all, the earthquake and giving birth. I mean, I'm thinking your daughter must have a pretty strong constitution to come in, pretty mystical to come in at that time. And then, of course, the healing journey. And then it almost feels like, Dr. Lotte, like the gift in a way of what you were able to see. So I guess for all of us, so you were then, do you remember, rushed back into your body? Like, what happened next? So you got to see this beautiful sparkling fishnet around the Earth. And then what happened after that?
Yeah. And then I was, immediately sent back. And I was kind of mad that I was sent back. And as I'm lying in my bed, trying, coming to and like, wow, that, this was crazy kind of experience. My daughter started, crying in her bedroom. And I immediately said, okay, I get it. Just send me back because she's waking up for whatever reason. Or she had a sense maybe that, something is wrong. Where's my mom? But it's really interesting that it was like within a minute of me coming back, I'm literally trying to regain myself. And it's really interesting because for a long time, I struggled with this experience because my first experience happened in the ER. It was very clear. It was a near-death experience. I was hemorrhaging. I was going into shock. I had medical records to prove it, right? Second experience, struggled with it for a long time. How do I know that I was close to death? I mean, I was really sick, but blah, 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 right? But now, the way I look at it now, it doesn't matter what you call these experiences, whether you want to call it a near-death experience because I was really sick and most likely that's what it was. But you also have these experiences called spiritually transforming experiences or STEs. And what you call it in the end doesn't matter because it is the impact or the change that it creates within you that matters in the end. This is just the experience, but what happened as a result of these experiences. That's really what what changes you. So for the next 12 years, I'm a slow learner that way. I needed so much proof. I can't tell you how much proof I needed. It's funny to me now because there's so many funny stories. And even, after I got out of med school, like in 2017, it makes me think of a story. Where I needed proof over and over again. And my daughter was just, laughing so hard. She goes, Mom, how much proof do you need? And I'm like, it was only 4 times. I asked for it 4 times. Show it to me again, right? On different days. But going through this, it took me, 12 years to learn to trust it, but I would still ask for proof like in 2017. Now I'm a lot better at it. And I'm like, okay, I got it. Because it's always the first message that comes through that is the correct message. But it's very difficult to learn to trust it, especially if you're very scientific and you want proof and how does this work, right? That's kind of who I am. So for 12 years, I had all these crazy experiences. I would see accidents before they happened. I knew people, my father was going to pass away. I knew my nephew was sick. It was just this constant bombardment of different experiences. And in the beginning, I would write all these things down. When I had premonitions or I would see things, I would write it down so I could then go back and say, okay, this is not a deja vu. This is not a coincidence. I wrote it down here. It's dated 2 days ago. And I could prove it to myself. And after 12 years of these experiences, I was looking on the computer and I said, all right, my kids are teenagers. I got to think about going back to work. And I could not go back working in tech. I was a programmer and systems analyst in my youth. And then I had studied nutrition. I had a degree in nutrition along the way. And I knew I had to work in health and healing. And I stumbled upon this website and it says naturopathic medical school, or, become a naturopathic physician. And then I realized it was a real medical school. And I said, oh, I can't do that. I'm in my 40s already. I have to do all the prereqs. And then there's no guarantee they're going to accept me. So I just closed my computer. I said, okay, that's it. I'll look tomorrow. And walk to the kitchen. And as I'm walking to the kitchen, the spirit world drops in. But now, it's been 12 years of this. This is in 2004. So I've learned to listen after 12 years. And the spirit world says, no, you have to become a naturopathic physician. You need a degree for the work you're here to do. You're not going to work as a physician the whole time, but you need a degree. And I'm like, okay, why do I need a degree and I'm not going to work? Why would I go to med school and not work as a doctor the whole time? And they're like, just do it. And then they said, you're to bring messages and healing to the people. You're to combine East and West, kind of old and new. And you are to write 2 books. No, wait, 3. I'm like, write a book about what? And they're like, when the time is right, we'll tell you. Just go and get your prereqs done. And literally, I was in school within 2 weeks, but I was a business and computer science major as an undergrad and did not have any science classes at all. So I had to start with, and I went to high school in Sweden. So I was a language major and business major in high school. So I basically did not have any science classes because we actually major in high school. So I had to start with advanced placement biology to get into the freshman biology, and get into the chemistry, and then organic chemistry and the physics and the math. I finally did all that, applied to med school, and then went to med school when I was 54, started med school, graduated when I was 58, did my 2 years, of residency. And then, so now it's 2018. And as soon as I graduated, it's really interesting. So now I'm used to listening to the spirit world, but I don't have any control over it. It just sort of drops in, gives me a message about somebody is in trouble, some relative is sick or something.
Dr.
And
Lotte, you hear it, or do you feel it or see it? Just really quick, does it do you tell us what that's like for you?
yeah, so it can be all of it. I'm going to say most of the messages come through in images, but I also hear and I also feel. So it's all three, but I'm going to say the images, the clairvoyance is what's the dominant clair for me. And as soon as I graduated, I was waiting for my license because we take the boards in August. It's like 3 days of taking the boards. And then we wait like a month and a half or 2 months before we get the license, because all these board exams are given all over the United States at the exact same time, because so there can't be any cheating, right? And it takes them forever to correct them. So I'm waiting on my license. I don't even know if I have passed yet. And I'm studying craniosacral therapy with the Upledger Institute in San Francisco. So I meet this woman and she said, I just moved to Arizona where you are. And I said, great, let's, I'm going to be down in Phoenix like next week. Let's meet for dinner. But we never got to know each other. We never had a conversation. I didn't know anything about her. So I meet her for dinner and she said, I'm a medium and somebody's here who wants to give you a message. Are you open to receive messages? And I said, sure. And I'm thinking, there is no way she's going to get anything right. I grew up in Europe. I have a different background. Sure enough, it's my mom. And she keeps saying, you have to go to Arthur Findlay College in England and study mediumship. And I'm like, I can't do that. I just graduated from med school. I'm waiting on to get my license. I have a contract with this clinic. I have to work there for 2 years and blah, blah, blah. And the message just keeps coming through. No, you have to go to Arthur Findlay College. So eventually I say, okay, fine. I will figure out a way to go. But the message that also comes through is, she says, oh, you're going to write 2 books. No, wait, 3. And that was the exact message I got in 2004. And then I got it again when I went to Arthur Findlay College, twice from the teachers there, 2 different teachers, and then one more time from another medium in the United States. So I've gotten that message 4 times. You are to write 2 books, no, wait, 3. So I've written my first one. I got 2 more to go. So I always joke, don't worry, nobody's going to kill me because I haven't written the other 2 books yet. So I'm trying to milk it. Get to stay longer. What if I write my 3rd book in my 90s? Is that good? Right? Because I figured they're not going to let me go to the other side until I'm done. So, all these different experiences is what really, brought me to my work today. So my work today has become an integration of, now I understand what the spirit world meant, because they said you need a degree for what you are here to do, but you're not going to work as a physician that whole time. You're going to be doing something else. Well, it's the integration of my work as a physician and working as a medium or an evidential psychic medium, bringing in loved ones from the spirit world to my client. And it was while I was working as a medium that really took me onto the path of ancestral healing. And I was doing readings for like 4 people in a row. And the readings were almost exactly the same. And I started thinking, am I talking to the same spirit I talked to yesterday? Because the readings were so similar. And the pattern was, I had your grandmother. I think this is your grandmother. She had a really hard life. And her husband was physically abusive towards her. And he also was physically abusive towards the children. And one of those, I see 3 children and one is a girl. That's your mom. Is that correct? Yes, that's correct. And then I said, but then your mom married someone, because now I see the next generation, married someone that was just like her dad. He was also physically abusive, and that was your father. Is that correct? Yes, that's correct. And I had 4 readings like that when I could see the pattern just being passed down through the generations. So that's what led me to study ancestral healing after I had graduated from med school. And so it has become this integrative approach to help people create healing in their life, whether they came from an abusive family, or they might have said, I love my mom. My mom is the best. She was so nurturing. I love her. Like I said, when I studied ancestral healing is a form of counseling. And but the way I work with it is an integration of mediumship, shamanism, counseling, and my medical knowledge. It's all like baked into one now, because you can't work with it separately. It all has to be together. And it's really interesting because it's that, that integration that brings healing to people. And when I studied it and I said, I don't have a mother wound. I love my mom. She was so nurturing. But then as I studied it, I realized that if you say, a lot of clients say, my family is like Leave It to Beaver, and we were all so happy and it was all perfect. I already know what they're struggling with, because that perfectness or that loving mother is going to give you a different kind of mother wound that is not it's not like you're wearing it on the sleeve the same way as if you had a mother that was dysfunctional in some way. If your mother wasn't, struggled with substance abuse, or she was always angry, she couldn't see you, she was a narcissist or whatever, you already know that you had an issue with your mom. You weren't seen, you weren't heard. But when you had a loving mom, it is not so readily available for you to see it. But that creates other issues that you struggle with going through life. So my work has taken me, I teach for the Shift Network. Been teaching, oh my gosh, almost 6 months about ancestral healing for the Shift Network. And now I finally made an online course, a self-study online course for one of the courses that I've taught for the Shift Network, which is about the mother wound. Because when you look at ancestral healing and the things that we struggle with in life, guess what? It all starts with mom. We came from mom. We spent 9 months in mom's womb. And it's absolutely fascinating how many things come from the mother wound. And so it doesn't matter what you tell me that your father was very abusive, but you love your mom, I'm still going to go to your mom first, because a lot of things come from mom, and that is how we sort of take on those patterns. But we take on patterns. Some of it comes from from DNA, and we even have scientific studies now that recognizes that trauma, our ancestors' trauma gets passed down on the DNA. And then we get entangled, via quantum physics, and then we have our own lived experiences. And so that's what I teach people. How do you untangle that and figure out what it is that what is it that you're struggling with? Where is it coming from? And how do I heal it? And so that is my course, and it's literally life-changing what people experience when they go through that, those different modules.
Dr. Lotte, and by the way, we'll have, just so everyone knows, I'm going to have the links in the show notes on YouTube, in the description, and we'll have it in the show notes. And anyone who's in my email community, we'll share that in the email about your episode, because I know this is going to touch a lot of hearts and a lot of souls, to do that healing. I want to just pause for a minute. What I think is so fascinating and really beautiful about you, and I know for many of our community and listeners, you came from this didactic, left brain, scientific, atheist background. What I think is so beautiful is through these life experiences and the near-death experiences and the 12 years of, testing it and not sure, you went back to medical school. I mean, you said at 54, so I wanted to pause, because for anyone listening who's like, I'm too old, or I can't do this, or you are like, and Louise Hay was like this, right? She didn't even start her publishing company Hay House until 60, so what I love is that you're just getting started. So you did the naturopathic, which is a whole thing. And then it's so funny. It's on my list to go to the Arthur Findlay School at some point. I've been hearing that message. So I love that you did that, which is in England. This is not like next door. So with children, with family, you listened to spirit, to your guidance. you're just a beautiful example of listening and following guidance and taking the next right step and trusting. And I wanted to say that because I don't want that to get lost. Those are nuggets of wisdom for all of us, and really tuning in to what, how you can heal. And so now it's so cool how you're taking from these different modalities. And I am curious in terms of, I will say with the mother wound, it's interesting. I actually worked with an energy medicine practitioner around this because I have such a loving mother, and it's been confusing. And she's alive and she's wonderful. And there's still things like most of us, there are things. And as you were saying that, so if you'll have to put in the comments if you're listening, you're like, yep, me too. I've had a challenging time, actually. It's taken I'm still in that place of trying to make sense of it because I was so loved. And I'm like, I don't get it. Why is this still challenging? So I think I love that you brought that up because, and I know for some people having a mother that was not loving or narcissist, it's almost what the person I worked with said is it's almost easier in that way to see the wound. But the wound is still there no matter what. And, I have to say as a mom, I think all the time, like, what's the wound my kids are going to come to me for, and just trust like we're all where we're supposed to be. So anyhow, I'd love to ask you about, now as having the evidential psychic abilities, medium abilities, and how you weave that in. When you meet with clients, when you teach, are you able to tune into, let's say, the mother that's here or that's already passed on? Do you also bring in other family? Like, can you bring in family from generations past? Share a little bit how the mediumship skills, I know people here are very interested in psychic and medium abilities. How do you weave that in? What does that look like? Maybe you could give an example.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. So I'm going to say sometimes, when you're doing mediumship readings, it's different because you're going into the mediumship mode. You're typically meditating for a little bit beforehand to set a good connection, a good clear signal to come in. Now, when you're working with ancestral healing, you're connecting with the person that's in front of you on the screen. But there are times when the spirit world just barks, comes in and just kind of like joins. So when if I work one-on-one with people, like one-on-one sessions, and we're doing ancestral healing, it will always end with a 10-minute guided meditation where I take them on a guided meditation journey. And I will do the speaking for them so that they don't have to do any speaking. And we resolve the issues that have come up. And we can now clearly see that, oh, this is coming from your mom. This is coming from your dad. Oh, this is your grandfather, or this is your uncle, right? And we can see where the issues are coming from that the client is struggling with. But it does happen that, the spirit world comes in, or even like during the healing, I feel the presence. I know that mother is there. I can see her, and sometimes, it becomes a channeling. So when I do the healing, I take them on a guided meditation journey, but I also channel during that time. I connect with the spirit world. So whatever has to be said and healed, this sort of comes through channeling. I mean, sometimes when I finish, I barely know what I said because I'm channeling the information that needs to be said in order to create healing for that person. That person is doing the work. But it's fascinating, like what happens when people go through this healing. Because I'm going to say, a common problem too is sometimes I get people that say, I haven't spoken to my child in 3 years, or I haven't spoken to my mom in 7 years. It's a complete disconnect. And we do one session, sometimes 2 or 3, depends, how many layers they want to peel back. But the people I'm thinking of, it's like one session, and then we do the healing, and then 2 or 3 weeks go by, I get an email and it says, guess who just called? This person that I haven't spoken to in all this time. And they have no awareness that this person has done in healing. This person is stepping up to the plate and doing healing for themselves. But it's fascinating. I mean, I know that I talk about it in my online course. I teach people what that looks like. We are all quantum physically connected. We are energetically connected to each other. When one person in the family creates healing for themselves,
Yes.
I'm going to say, do I have evidence of this? Of course not. But it's like the frequency of us changes because we create healing.
Yes.
We resonate and train differently with everybody in our family system, whether we see them or we don't see them. And I mean, I just worked with someone 2 or 3 weeks ago, and I hadn't worked with her in like a year. And she said, "Remember last year we did that ancestral healing about my mom, who I hadn't spoken to in like 8 years or something?" She goes, "Well, since then, I went through a divorce, and I speak to my mom every day." So after we did the healing, completely reconnected. She now has a very close relationship with her mom, and her mom is even helping supporting her as she's getting her feet on her ground again. I mean, it's just fascinating. I had another client tell me we did a session, and then she had a family gathering. It was like Christmas or something, and her brother said, I don't know what you're doing, but I know you're healing. You're doing something, and because I can see you're healing, I am now going to start counseling." And she almost fell off her chair because she said, "This is my brother." It's like he would never go down that route, right? And it's fascinating. And I see this over and over, and I hear about it, how like when we create healing for ourselves and we take that step, and I always tell people, you cannot change other people. They're on their journey, but you can heal yourself. All the healing that we do for ourselves in this life is going to affect everybody that you know and all the people that are coming after you. And the only way that we can create a better world, a more healthy world, a world where we're more compassionate human beings, guess where it starts? Right here with us. Right. And where do we start with us? It starts with mom. Right. And that's why that is my first thing that I recorded, to get that out there, because I just think it's more important now than ever with everything that's going on in the world. Is I feel like, especially women, we have to step up to the plate and start to create healing for ourselves, for our families, for our offspring, for our ancestors. Because when we all create healing, it's going to affect the masses of the people, because it affects anybody that you know, that
Yeah,
knows you.
absolutely. I even think of the like sparkling net. You're seeing we're all connected. Really quick, because I do want to end with a intuitive message, but I want to know the course you created. So healing the mother wound, the ancestral healing, you actually teach people how to do this themselves. Is that what? Say a
Yeah.
little bit more. That's
Yeah,
really
yeah,
cool.
exactly. I mean, my goal is, I know I'm here as a healer, right? That's my incarnation. It's in my astrological
Clearly.
chart. It's in my numerology chart. It's in my Mayan calendar. It doesn't matter who I work with. They're all saying the same thing, right? So I'm here as a healer. I know that. Um, and I know that I was supposed to have my near-death experiences. I worked with astrologers that say the exact day of my first near-death experience is literally in my astrological chart. It was supposed to be that day, which is why probably I went to the ER 2 days too early. I wasn't ready to have it, because that specific day, July 10th, 1992, all the planets were lined up in a specific way that I had one astrologer tell me it was to remind me of why I incarnated into this life. I'm here as a healer to help heal the people. And it's fascinating. And other astrologers have told me you had way more near death experiences than you remember, because the way your chart looks, we can see that. And again, right, it's just, I feel like everybody has experiences like this. We have dreams. People come to us in our dreams from the spirit world. We are all spiritual, intuitive creatures. But if we're not here to work with it, we might not remember it, right? So if you're here to be, an amazing accountant, guess what? That's your path. You don't need to remember your near-death experience that you had when you were in a car accident, because it's not part of this life path for you, because you're here to be this amazing accountant and run a business or something. So, I'm going to say part of it is our incarnation and what we came to do in this life. So
Beautiful. Beautiful. By the way, a little wink. I just have to say this, and this is like just off the cuff, but when you said that date, it's funny. Before a show, I always call in guides, anyone that's working with me, with you. We even said, may this conversation bless everyone. And that is the date my grandfather transitioned. I never met him. I was named after him. And I just felt this like warmth all over my body. Like you said, July 10th. And I'm like, oh my God, that's a day. Every year there's something that happens. I've had some incredible synchronicities. But I want to say thank you. And for anyone else that maybe that date is important, you said that, I'm like, okay, so we're all connected, because I could feel as we're talking about ancestry and ancestral wounds, I'm like, wow, that's just something about that. So I don't know. I just had to say thank you. That touched me, and I'm feeling that ancestral connection as we're talking, if that makes any sense.
Yeah, makes
Really
perfect sense.
synchronicity, it just can show up anywhere. So, Dr. Lotte, I'm curious, before we end, I love to just ask you, is there perhaps a download, a message from spirit, anything you are feeling or sensing? Maybe it's something I didn't ask you, or it could be an actual message. I assume you can tune into whoever's listening now and at any point. I just want to give you the space, the mic. If there's anything you'd like to share that's coming through you, I think that would be beautiful.
Yeah. So what's coming through as you're speaking, the message is that you're all divine. You're all made of love. That's what's coming through. And you're all, okay, so you're all beautiful the way you are. Just be yourself, be your authentic selves is what's coming through. And by healing yourself, you're healing the world. I keep saying like that, the heart and it's like everybody that just tune into yourself, because that's all you can do. You can just heal yourself. And remember the beautiful creature you are. You are divine human beings, that you are connected to everything, to all the animals, the trees, the flowers, the earth itself. You are part of the earth. You are having a symbiotic relationship with the earth, right? We breathe, we exhale that carbon dioxide, and the trees gives us the oxygen. It's this whole relationship that we have with each other and with the earth. So never forget that, nothing is impossible, and just remember how divinely created you are, and that you are love.
Oh, beautiful. And so it is. And I have to say, if anyone's watching, what was so cool is your dog, as you were saying, the animal kingdom. I was like, just see this little tail. I'm like, oh my gosh, you're calling it in. There he is. There she is. There we are, all connected. Dr. Lotte, thank you so much. I mean, you are such a woman of valor, of inspiration, of healing. And I think for anyone at any age, at any time, it is never too late. That's one of the things I'm taking away, and that we all have these gifts. We are all divine. Thank you for the service, the work that you're doing. Thank you for being here. I knew the minute I got the request when we talked about having you on this show, it was like, oh yes, oh yes. So your energy, your vitality, your wisdom is just really, it's a gift. Thank you for sharing that with us all.
Yeah, well, thank you so much for having me as a guest.
Beautiful. And I'll just end by saying thank you to you, our beloved listener, soul family. Thank you. And may this conversation bless you for now and forever. I am so excited to share with you that I've opened the doors to my Intuition Summer School. So Intuition Summer School, it's a 5-week live program. You will have lifetime access to all of the 9 modules. I'm going to teach you my intuition framework. You have access to all of the meditations and the activations and the resources and worksheets. There's a lot of material in the Intuition School course. And we're going to do this together over the summer in a 5-week intensive. So we'll be meeting on Tuesdays starting July 1st, ending July 29th. Everything's recorded. So if you're on vacation or you're at the beach or you can't show up for that class or a couple of the classes, no problem, my friend, we will have everything recorded. And this is really for you if you're feeling like you want to stop following the doubt and the fears. You want to take action in your life. You want to have more confidence and clarity, whether it's around your health, maybe it's around your career or a relationship or anything to do with your life that means something to you. I'm going to help you and teach you to learn how to truly access your inner guidance, your connection to your higher self, to your spirit guides, to the angels that are working with you, and most importantly, to your inner wisdom, your intuition. So Make sure when you check out, we've got a great 20% off going right now. Use the code SUMMER and that will get you 20% off. If this is speaking to your soul, if you're leaning in, I teach a lot of tools on how to access and unlock your intuition. Some really, really fun tools. I don't want to give it all away, but things like using pendulums, muscle testing, aligning your chakras, way more than that. If your soul is saying yes, if you're leaning in, I hope you'll join me and I hope to see you in Intuition Summer School. Mwah.